Welcome to Beyond the Briefing. I'm Shannon Marvel. From Inverness to the front lines of Ukraine, Nessie the Nissan, the well-worn X-Trail has completed a 2,500-mile journey from the banks of Inverness to the front lines in Ukraine. Behind the wheel is local mechanic Danny Ward, who gave up his annual leave, loaded Nessie with humanitarian aid and drove across Europe to deliver support where it's needed most. Packed with Highland kindness, from food toiletries to a bottle of single malt, this mission proves what many here already know. When the Highlands rally, the impact can reach far beyond our glens. And following the story has been our own Val Sweeney. So tell us why you wanted to follow this story.
So Danny's incredible journey was flagged up to me by Helen McRae of Highlands for Ukraine, and I've done quite a few pieces in the last 3 years through this organisation since Russia invaded Ukraine. At the start of the invasion, we actually had about 750 displaced Ukrainian people, mainly women and children, who came to the Highlands. The story, in a way, has slipped down the news agenda in recent times. Other things have taken over. But people still feel very strongly about what is going on. And I think here in the Highlands as well, people are still supporting the Ukrainian people. So when Helen flagged up Danny's story, this incredible journey, I just felt we had to find out more and carry that story.
And we do have the man behind the wheel today, Danny. Thank you so much for coming in today.
You're welcome.
Val, the floor is yours.
For anyone contemplating embarking on a solo journey all the way from Inverness to the front line in Ukraine to deliver a vehicle called Nessie the Nissan along with humanitarian aid, surely that is either incredible bravery or downright bonkers. What motivated you to do this?
It's definitely halfway between the two of them. The war's been going on for over 3 years. It's been going on for longer than that. It's been going on since 2014. And we've got to remember that Kramatorsk is an area that was under Russian control at one point. This year, especially with the Americans pulling support from them, it looked even bleaker than before. It was hard before, but I think with that support lost, it's turning what was difficult into semi-impossible. The family around me supported me. My wife supported me. She would have come with me. She definitely said it would be not exciting, but it'd be an interesting trip, which it certainly was.
Was she worried for your safety?
No, I don't think so. No. I wouldn't say she's worried. She knew there's risks, but she said they're my risks to take. We have a great relationship, and that's how it is, that we support each other in what we want to do. She's from Latvia, which is a country that obviously was part of the Soviet Union, certainly is at risk of future invasions if Russia was to be successful in Ukraine. The fact that my wife is Latvian, and I do want to make sure that that country's safe in the future. But this one, it's just the people are going through such a hard time. And at the moment, they're really, really struggling. Speaking to them out there, and we don't see over here so much on the news. We hear the fantastic achievements of what's happened in Russia this week, what's happened with the bridge between Crimea and Russia, but we don't hear the day-to-day struggles from the actual front line. Not only the soldiers, but the people trying to help the soldiers and the hard work that goes into it. These people are working tireless. These are 18-hour days, but not for 1 or 2 or 3 days. This is over 3 years of putting in long days. We all know what it's like to work a long day, but the mental torture of being bombed at night, which I've had a few days of it, it's stressful. They look calm, but like they said to me at the time, they're not used to it. You don't get used to it. You have to learn to live and make sure that you can do what you need to do. The people there that I met are working normal jobs. There was a software writer he does software writing, but then he's making components for the drones. He's making components for the bombs, as well as running around and helping with stuff his partner's doing on rescuing pets and giving them a chance as well. So it's all the stuff that we don't see regularly on the news that makes it a true story.
You had a mission to deliver Nessie the Nissan.
How this all came about is I've been a supporter of Aid Ukraine, but then at Christmas time I sent them an email. I had 3 weeks off work, so I asked if they had anything they wanted taken out, as in Christmas aid type thing. But they didn't get back to me in time. It just didn't work out. And then in March, they sent an email out to people who were prepared to be volunteers about moving cars over. They had a couple that they wanted moving from down south of England to Ukraine, but I couldn't do them because our busy time at work's March. So I spoke with my manager, seeing when I could take holidays, and said, I could do one at this time. And they were right, well, we need a 4-wheel drive, ideally a Nissan X-Trail, mainly because the people out there are used to them, driving them, working on them, probably got spare parts, they're cheaper parts and reliable vehicles. And this is the budget. So the shocking thing is the budget comes out of soldiers' wages. They do a whip round to buy vehicles that they're losing. This isn't paid for by the military. This isn't paid for by charities. This is purely out of their wages, which I find shocking that in this day and age that we can't find funds to buy them what are relatively cheap vehicles and get them to them. So they told me what they wanted. We went looking online for different ones, found one in Ayr, one in Bolton. So I arranged with my brother-in-law, Nigel, to go and have a look at the one in Bolton, which looked a decent one. At that point in time when I was asking, or I was trying to raise the funds for it, I was then covering fuel and transportation to get it from here to Kramatorsk and back. I get myself back from Kramatorsk as well. And then trying to fill the vehicle with aid as well.
What aid did you take?
A lot of pet food, which is a huge thing that's needed out there. The amount of animals that are being cared for is very high. A lot of evacuation volunteers don't take pets. But Aid Ukraine, and they're an umbrella for other organisations. They look after the pets. So there was a lot of pet food in there. There's a lot of tins, a lot of hygiene products, shower gels, wipes. I was fortunate enough to get a lot of stuff from Blytheswood as well. So they give me a lot of Zimmers, walking aids, crutches, teddies for children, and just, it was a vast range of different things. And it was all, even netting, fishing net for a drone protection, picked up from, it was fully packed, the vehicle. Every space in that vehicle was taken up. Every pocket of space was filled with something.
So you set off from Inverness. I think it took you 3 days to reach the Ukrainian border. At what point did it feel like you were in a country at war?
It wasn't until near Kyiv. Crossing the border, there's obviously a military presence. The vehicle was getting military papers as it crossed the border as well. So there was communication with the military and the military police. But then once you get into the country, it felt quite normal. Everything felt just as you'd expect it to in an Eastern European country. It was a nice drive. The roads were okay. They weren't bad. The driving through Lviv, you can see it's a beautiful city, and you can see why people would be attracted to go there. Once you get past Lviv, it changes a little bit, and the closer you come, the less roadside places are open. So I was then struggling for a hotel. Going through Lviv, you could see hotels, and I planned to stop as it was getting dark, because I'd been driving for a long time that day as well. As I was thinking about stopping, there was less and less places at the side of the road. There was longer distances in between anywhere, and it was just fuel stops. There was no hotels with the petrol stations. Carried on and needed to top up the car, and through Google Translate asked a very nice lady behind the till where the next hotel was, and she just said Kyiv. I was like, well, that's not good, because I've got to be there before midnight in a hotel, otherwise I miss curfew. I've never experienced the curfew over there, so I didn't know what it'd be like. And luckily enough, I got to a hotel. The lady let me in. This was like 10 minutes to go. All the gates were shut to this complex and everything. So she let me in, and I got a bed for the night. Once I was relaxed, just as I was ready to go to sleep, the air raid siren went, which everyone's heard of air raid siren, but hearing it for your first time when it's a real air raid siren, it's totally different to hearing it on the radio or anywhere else that you would. So it's a nerve-wracking moment. I had to contact my contact over there, and she was very helpful, very reassuring, and just give me the advice to follow the 2-wall rule. Make sure you're 2 walls between you and glass. If you're 2 walls between you and glass, you've got a chance. Kiev's got really good air defences. The chances are it's not going to be a direct hit. It's going to be drones falling out the sky or an explosion that shatters the glass, so you need to get away from the glass. And she said, if it does hit the building, you're dead. Don't worry about the fact that you're only 2 walls away, because if it hits the building, you've not got a chance anyway. And that's the facts that they have to deal with. I made a promise to them that I'd take them a vehicle. Now, I could have just as easy, they offered, he said, if you even take it to Lviv, we can get it from Lviv, or we can get it from Kiev. Once it's in Ukraine, we can deal with it from there. But I saw it as they've got more vital work to do than driving a car from Lviv to Kramatorsk. I got told to stop at Poltava because the drive from Kiev to Kramatorsk, it's a reasonably long drive. And they were worried if I took missed turns or for any reason went the wrong way or got lost or had problems, that I might miss their curfew, which is a lot earlier than Kiev, because it's a fully militarized zone. It's totally different. So they said to me, we stop in Poltava, it's a nice, safe city. I was like, well, that's good. Yeah. And they said, you know, that's where we sort of take our breaks. And so it doesn't get hit that often. They're more concentrate on Kharkiv or Kiev. So I was quite confident when I was going there. This place seemed busy. I mean, it was really busy. It was really nice city to walk around. And I got there nice and early. So I got to enjoy the afternoon, have a stretch of legs, go to the hotel's restaurant, which was absolutely dead, as you expect. It's not really a tourist attraction at the moment. Had a really, really nice meal there, and then went to get an early night. And not long after getting in bed, the first explosion happened, and it was close. You knew it was close. You could feel it coming through your body. I didn't look out the window because that's, you know, you're told not to go near the glass. So the first thing I wanted to do was get my clothes on and get my passport and go into the hallway because it felt so close. I just wanted to make sure I had my documents on me. The rest of the stuff, it doesn't really matter. Then as I was leaving the hotel room, the second explosion hit, and that was even closer. That was, you could feel the building shake with that one properly. Then all the car alarms start going off in the street. I walked into the hallway, and the other people in the hallway were scared, like not just a little bit scared. These were looking in real fear. There's been attacks on Poltava, but they're not used to it like the place is closer to the front line. So the hallway was full of glass. At the end of each end of the building was like big glass walls from floor to ceiling. So the hotel management took us all to a basement room. We waited in there for quite some time. My phone was playing up, so I wasn't getting messages at the time. Not a lot of people speak English fluently over there. There was a couple with broken English, and they were able to get over to me. There was a lot of drones in the sky at the time. You have like a Telegram channel that you can go onto, and it tells you what's happening, where it's happening, where they look like they're heading for, and you keep a track on that. Obviously, I couldn't do it because my phone wasn't working properly. But then they all started looking a little bit more relieved. And one of the management came in from the reception area and said that, you know, it's clear we're okay. And it came over that the ones that the explosion I heard, were drones getting destroyed in the sky. But the debris comes down somewhere, so it's still very dangerous. And there was a lot more in the sky that night. When I went back to the room, I actually was able to fall asleep straight away, which really surprised me, because the night before I wasn't at all. And then the next morning when I woke up, messages had come through on my phone, from my contact over there, and it was a message chain of all these different things that were happening that I'm glad I didn't know at the time, because it really would have scared me. A lot of activity in that area that night. Once I got up and had a shower and went to load my personal belongings in the car, I then needed to come back in the hotel, get my navigation set on the Wi-Fi, because the data still wasn't working properly over there. It's because the overseas SIMs get blocked off during these air raids. The domestic ones don't tend to, but the overseas ones do, because the Russians embed SIMs in their drones, so it makes sense that they disrupt that network. I then set off, but it was so smoky around the area. You knew something had happened. You could smell it, you could taste it, but I didn't know where it was. You couldn't see where it was coming from. And my concentration on that time was more, I've got to drive around Kharkiv and go quite close to the city centre of Kharkiv before the road takes me out again. That was the nervous bit for me. The Poltava wasn't supposed to be a nervous place, but Kharkiv I'd seen what they'd been putting up with for the whole war, but I'd seen what they'd been putting up with for the Easter period and beyond, and that was quite a nervy time, because I didn't know how quiet the roads would be. If I was the only car on the road, I'm going to be an easier target to see. I've got a higher chance if a drone's in the sky that it's going to aim for me. But as I was driving closer, it was quiet going out of Poltava because it was 5 o'clock in the morning. But I wasn't the only car on the main road going out of Poltava, which was reassuring. As I got closer to Kharkiv, that's when the military stuff, that's where you realise you're in a war zone. You see the heavier defences, the heavier checkpoints, the stricter checkpoints, the fact that there's so many pickups with guns on the back of them, and heavier military equipment as well, travelling on the roads. So that's where you really notice it. But that starts about 20 kilometres from Kharkiv. And then as you get to Kharkiv, there was a thick smoke that morning. It was lighter before I got to Kharkiv, and as you got to Kharkiv, it dimmed because the smoke's in the sky and it's blocking the sun out. And when you see the forest fires and stuff like that, it's probably a similar thing. But you know that it's people's homes burning, businesses burning, and people will be losing their lives as well. You know you're that close to where people will be getting killed. It's not if they're getting killed, it's there will be people dying.
I think at that point, a lot of people would have just turned round and let someone else take the vehicle, but you kept going and you eventually arrived.
Kharkiv's a busy place. It's unbelievably busy. There was so many people. The petrol station was open. It's a normal shop petrol station. There's nothing different there. It's the same as what you get here. There's people getting on the buses going into the city centre. There's people driving into the city centre. These are going directly into a city centre that's under constant attack. When you look at it and you see them, you can't help but think that I'll be fine. That's all you can think. He's like, I'll be okay. If they can do it, I can do it. Driving to Kramatorsk, the roads were actually amazing. They're far better than the roads here. Even last night, I got sent pictures from a contact over there, and they had a drone land in the centre of Kramatorsk last night, and within an hour, they were repairing the road. And I'd like Inverness Council to go over there and have a look at how it's done, because their roads are far better than ours and fixed far quicker, and that's 18 kilometres from a front line. On a serious note, there was a number of checkpoints between Kharkiv and Kramatorsk, and because the soldiers are not speaking English, I was fortunate. I had military papers for the vehicle and my passport, so I could hand them over and they could see all that, and a volunteer letter as well off Age Ukraine to explain what I was, that they could check on if they wanted. But the military papers sort of, they knew what it was for. But on the final checkpoint, the soldier there did speak a little bit of English, and he just said, "Are you a volunteer?" And I said, "Yes." And he just looked at me and said, "Good luck." That was it. It was tight and waved me on. It was like, so at that point, I'm thinking, well, yeah, okay. Is that a nice good luck, or yeah, you're not coming out?
What were the scenes that greeted you then when you finally got to Kramatorsk?
Well, as you drive past a final military checkpoint, there's a bridge that's been destroyed, and then you have to go on a smaller temporary one next to it. So you sort of straight away know that it's under bombardment. To get into Kramatorsk, you start seeing buildings that are destroyed, and I went to meet my contacts at a place that I was given. I was only given the address on the final day as well, so they knew where I was, and they took me in the house and they were showing me around the house, and we're having a look at the 3D printing that gets done, the designs of different things that they're coming up with, the drones that are being produced by them. Again, it's much like cottage industries. Everyone's doing something at home for this. They had animals there that I was getting to see as well, which was really nice. But within a few minutes of being in the house, there was an explosion, and you could see the smoke rising in the distance, and they just looked normal. But I felt comfortable at the time until a door slammed shut behind us with the breeze. And that sort of like woke me up again. And then within a short space of time, there was another explosion. This is broad daylight. This is not nighttime. This is just the drones coming in and dropping off the bombs and doing the damage that they do. They then had a contact come meet me. He does a lot of rescue works with the animals. Then my actual contact from the military over there, he came in, said hello. We had a lunch, which was a traditional Ukrainian dish that the host's grandmother had made as well. So that was really nice. They give me a couple of shots of a local drink, and we had to do it in a local way as well, of drinking it. So that obviously the one who was driving the vehicle wasn't having any drink, but they wanted to make me feel welcome, which was really nice. Maybe wanted to take the edge off the danger as well. And then we unloaded Nessie, which was quite a job. There was a lot in there. Once we loaded it into another van, it was like, there's actually a lot in this car. Seriously, it was just never ending. And I even found my house keys that I'd lost the previous weeks. Gone all the way to Ukraine to find my house keys, which, yeah, made my wife laugh, considering I was telling her that she'd lost them for me. But it was then that we went off and went looking around at the city and got to see places which it's emotional when you're there, because you know that people have died at these places. I've been to the Manchester Evening News Arena not long after it reopened, after the explosion there, and it feels weird when you know you're in a place where people have suffered in that way. To go to so many different places in one day where so many different people have died, and see these are not military targets, these are not places like factories even that you could semi-understand and wanting to destroy. These are not infrastructure places as such. These are the university halls. There is a club at the bottom of the university halls that would have been full of students that was hit. There's shops that are hit. There's the local school has been destroyed. The one that hit me the most, you run the picture in the news when there's a blanket with the teddies and stuff, was the site of a house where a family of 4 were killed. And that was relatively recent to when I was travelling there. It's not just that one house. That one house is absolutely obliterated. But for such a distance around, there's so much damage, and it spreads and spreads and spreads. And you see the glass is broken, and you know that so many people have been hurt in the surrounding bits as well as killed.
You witnessed all these heartbreaking scenes then, but you also had your most surreal experience there.
Yeah, he's I can't mention his name because it would be a security problem. But I codenamed him Barnes Wallace because he's a genius at making bombs. So he had a place that every single room was packed with some form of explosive or ordnance, either in the middle of recycling or recycled or going to be recycled. There was so much C4 in there and so many concoctions that he had in there, boxes and boxes of this stuff that were there. And he was explaining through my military contact what he was doing, what he was making and how he was making it. And it was an eye-opener in the fact that this guy has a backstory. He's originally from Mariupol. He sees the ordnance, he gets given, or he goes scouring for it as well. So he's either got stuff that's expired from different places, expired ordnance that he can get hold of and reuse, or he's got ordnance that he's found unexploded in places. He tried to reverse engineer a Russian drone last year, and unfortunately the explosive on that actually exploded on him and injured him, so he was out of action for a while, but he's back doing it, and he has such a smile on his face, so excited to tell the different things. And it's not a macabre excitement, it's he's helping his country and he wants his people to be free. But when you hear his ideas, and he says when he strips these weapons down, he can already work out in his head what he wants to make out of them and what he wants to do with them. And then he'll speak to another person who'll then come up with whatever components he needs and print them in 3D printing, and they can work out from there. And yeah, he was such a nice guy, and he was showing how different compositions of materials do different things. But the conditions that he was living in, he had an air mattress, cats around him, and that was it. And that was a room for him, an outside toilet. And you just think that this person is dedicating his life. And at the time, his vehicle that he had was broken down. So my aim over here was to get him one as a replacement. Luckily enough, they've been able to find his team, because there's a few of them that he has working with him, a couple of vehicles. So the one that I'd want to now go and get for him, for them, is basically a pickup, but it'd be an evacuation pickup. But yeah, it was meeting him was amazing. It was not just meeting him, it was seeing what he's doing and how he's helping that cause. Each one of them explosives will help save the Ukrainian life, or it'll help keep a position. And these are not paid for by the military over there. This is through fundraising. They spend their own money on doing this. They raise money online doing this. The problem is, it's such a big line. The money doesn't spread for Ukraine all the way through it. Their air defenses are going to be expensive. The heavy equipment that they need, the planes that they need, it's all donated, but it's all going to need running as well. It doesn't, the fuel costs alone for these people are the biggest one every month. They were saying the tyres for the vehicles cost a lot of money. The sheer amount of vehicles that they end up going through, when they're driving on the front line, they have to drive at high speed for safety. It's not boy races. This is trying to make sure you're not going to get hit. They can weld them and weld them and weld them so many times, but the chassis will break, or their engines will break, or the gearboxes will break, or they'll be hit by a drum.
Do you know how Nessie the Nissan is faring?
Yeah, I got a video the other day. She was delivering food to the front line. So she's based out of a town that's about 30 or 40 kilometres from Kramatorsk. She's based out of there, and she's working away and doing the job that she was intended to do. And the second day in Ukraine was probably the proudest day, because we had a truck of 22 tons of medical aid turn up. And luckily enough, Aid Ukraine got offered this truck, and they could only come up with half of the fuel cost to get it from Munich to Kramatorsk. I reached out to Helen from Highlands for Ukraine, who I'd met previously before going, and said, is there anything you can do to help with this? Because we can't miss out on 22 tons of aid just for some money. And she was able to arrange that. So the pebble in the water pushed the little ripple to another ripple, and it ended up bringing a lot of help, a lot of fire extinguishers for the troops, which are lifesavers with some of the ordnance that the Russians are using and now the Ukrainians are using, which basically set fire to the trenches that you're in. And now they've got fire extinguishers to help stop that. But they've also got hospital equipment that was vital over there, the mattresses for the hospitals. That was more the fact that my trip did more than what I expected it to do. And they're still doing more than what I expected it to do.
So last question then, would you do it again?
100%. That's the biggest thing at the moment, is the lack of funds. So at the moment I'm trying to raise £3,500 to get a pickup truck for the front line. Where it goes exactly on that front line around Kramatorsk, I don't know, but I know that it will be used for delivering aid, for delivering equipment, for evacuations, and pet rescues, and it's not over there. It's not military and civilian and you and me and stuff like that. It's Ukraine. They don't class themselves as soldiers. They're defenders. None of them would have grown up aspiring to be a soldier, or only a few of them would have. The majority of them have normal jobs that they would be doing, but they're fighting for their cities and their towns. And anything we can do to help them get a victory and get their country back is so vitally important. And £3,500 to us is not a lot of money, but that gets a vital piece of equipment to the front line and all the aid that we can squeeze into that vehicle as well. And it will be a lifesaver. Like Nessie today is a lifesaver. She's taking the food, the water bags. She'll be transporting troops to and from that front line. She'll be getting equipment from other places. And we from the Highlands have got that vehicle to her. There are other organisations, there are other people doing it. All of them are finding it difficult for the funding. Every one of them. There's not one person I've spoken to about this who finds it easy to get funding. It's people's perception, and mine to an extent was of this, that they're getting aid, or there's other organisations doing it, or our government are sending money. The government is sending money for the big stuff that's really expensive, and we are doing that. Probably not as much as we should be doing, considering the promises we made in the 90s, but we are doing that. But when you look at what the Americans have pulled out, the drop in finances will be huge this year. And we just need to try a little bit harder. It falls out the news. You see it as they'll be helping, that'll be helping. But the fact on the ground is it won't be. And soldiers are paying for their vehicles out of very small wages after they already took a 25% pay cut. You know, when we talk about cost of living crisis over here, their cost of living has drastically shot up. Everything's more expensive. The logistics of getting stuff to Kramatorsk is unbelievably difficult. And the reason I chose Kramatorsk and not Kherson or Kharkiv or Kyiv or Lviv to try and get something to is Kramatorsk is the furthest city into Ukraine from the Polish border. You have to pass so many places that also need help that a lot of people will go to them places instead. It's a difficult place to get to. Like I say, from Inverness, it's 2,800 miles. It is a difficult place to get to. You feel nervous on the way, and a lot of people won't go there at all. They are struggling now. They really are. It's not an easy springtime that they've had, and it's not going to be an easy summertime. They're just hopeful that there's still a Kramatorsk after this summer. That's their hope, is that Kramatorsk is still under Ukrainian control, and that it isn't destroyed, because every city that the Russians go into, they destroy and they kill people. It's hard to see when you talk to them about that. They know the war crimes that are going on, and they don't want to be part of that. They don't want to give up their city. They won't leave their city. Even if they're told to retreat from there, they won't retreat, because this is their home. And they're proud of it, and they're proud to be Ukrainian. And I'd be proud if I was a Ukrainian. You can't always say that about being British, but I'd certainly be proud if I was Ukrainian.
You've been listening to Beyond the Briefing, the stories behind the headlines, diving deeper into the biggest stories in the Highlands. This podcast is brought to you by Highland News and Media. It's hosted and produced by Shannon Marvel. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and share with others who care about local journalism.